In this video, we will use Istio to do a dark release of a new feature in our frontend. A dark release, also known as dark launch, is a production release only available to certain users. We are implementing it by setting a cookie in the browser so that Istio can use it to serve the request from pods containing the new version. The cookie could be set by our backend and be set only to certain users, but anyone knowing the cookie could easily access this new version. First, we'll take a look at the needed Istio definitions. We'll start with our virtual service definition. We have a list of routing rules that we'll try to match against our request. The first one that matches takes precedence. Therefore, we place our frontend routing with a prefix of a root/path at the end as a catch-all block. It will match anything that hasn't been caught by a previous rule. We have duplicated this block and placed it second to last with the modifications to match the conditions for the dark release routing. If the request does not match the dark release conditions, it will fall in the last rule, which will serve the current frontend. If a request comes with a cookie named release with the value dark, the new version will be served. For this to work, we see that we have added a subset property in each route serving the frontend. This subset property is a reference that points to a Istio destination rule subset, which will select which pods will be used by Istio to serve the request. We see that we have created a subset for version dark and a subset for version current. Now we'll take a look at the destination rule. We see that this rule declares two subsets with a name that matches the ones used in the virtual service. The label property in each subset is actually a selector that will target the pods containing that label. Obviously, for this to take effect, we need to modify our deployment definitions to label our pods with a label named version with values dark or current. We updated the deployment YAML file to label our current deployment with a version label with value current. For the dark label, we will need to create a new deployment definition that will have the dark label and also the image tag that has the new version that we want to test. We name this file darkdeployment.yaml. As a side note, we have made some modifications to our CI/CD workflow to accommodate dark releases in the frontend. We have created a dark release branch in GitHub that will feed the new image that will be created. We have set up a new Tecton pipeline that will watch for commits in this branch and automatically test and build the image. Then it will update the dark deployment YAML file in our GitHub repository with the new image tag. Because I had committed the darkdeployment.yaml to the GitHub repo to test the dark release Tecton pipeline, the cluster is now in a somehow inconsistent state. I had to manually delete the dark deployment, and that is why the cluster is not synchronized with the repo and you can see a little ghost icon. There is an explanation for this. Since the destination rules are not being applied, the labels in the dark deployment are being ignored, and the pods in the dark deployment are eligible for responding requests. The index file containing the frontend triggers requests for CSS and JavaScript resources, and these will be named differently for each version. If a request for these resources lands in the pod containing a different version, they will be named differently and this will produce an error. We will commit these new definitions to our GitHub repo and let Argo CD synchronize to our new declared state. Once everything is up and running, we can now go to our app and test that a normal user without the cookie gets the current version. The new version has a recently added UI slider to filter recommendations by popularity. Our backend had this feature previously released, but it wasn't reachable with our current frontend. We will add a cookie named release with the value dark as the one we have defined in our virtual service button rule. When we refresh the browser, we can see that we are being served the new version. If we change the value of the cookie, we get the current one. If we set again the correct value, we get the new version. And finally, if we remove the cookie, we get the current version.